Hey everybody, JJ here, back again for another Saturday Zoom Networking. Today we've got a young man on here who is just an unbelievable guy. I love this guy. He's one of the young Sub2 rock stars, Pace Morby Sub2 community. And if you've been on the calls before, you've heard me mention Pace Morby. If you don't know the name, you're living under a rock. Pace is the absolute supreme genius in the country, which means the world, for creative finance and real estate. Pace Morby Sub2 community, it's for Subject to, acronym, is the premier #1 real estate education platform in the country, bar none. I don't care who you guys are. But our guest speaker today is a young man. He was one of the rising rock stars, if not one of the OG rock stars in Sub2. He started as a student. He's an entrepreneur. He's a businessman. He's a father. He's a husband, family man. Going to be a little league dad for Pony League baseball for Liam out there, his young son. But I want to introduce my good friend, Mr. Jonathan Newsome. Jonathan, how you doing today, my friend?
JJ, thank you so much for that intro. That was amazing. I'm doing so good. How are you?
I'm great, man. It's an honor to have you on the call. I tell people all the time, it's important to market themselves, important to be out there, because that when you do, your name will then precede you and your name becomes your brand. Well, I'd heard your name long before I got a chance to meet you. We had met in January at the mastermind. And I was just honored to have you on my panel for the hot seat and, get a chance to know you a little bit. And of course, we'll get a chance to know one another even more as time goes on. But for those that don't know you, where in the country are you located?
Yeah, so I'm over in Dallas, Texas.
I actually lived in Dallas for 4 years.
Did you?
I lived in Mesquite. I've got a horse. I moved out to the east side. Kept my horse in Mesquite. I lived in Mesquite. I kept him actually just south of Mesquite. I got to ride my horse in the grand entry to Mesquite Rodeo.
Get out. Really?
That was pretty cool. And
That's
then
epic.
I came home after a couple of years, look after my dad. My dad had congestive heart failure. And then I went back and I lived in Grapevine and Keller.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I was just north of the north side.
Yeah.
And I was going to I was in the country western dancing at the time. So I went to Cowboys Arlington, Cowboys Red River,
Yep.
Country 2000 before they closed it. I was going to all the honky tonks and going dancing and rodeos and stuff like that, state fair. But yeah, I was out there myself for a bit. How long have you been in Dallas?
That's awesome. So I've been in Dallas all my life. I kind of ventured outside of it due to work, but born and raised here.
Hot dog. Are you a Cowboys fan?
Dallas Cowboys for life, man.
There you go, brother. There you go. I used to hate the Cowboys when I was a kid because they kept beating the Rams in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, if people hate your team, it means because they're good.
That's it.
They don't hate the teams that aren't any good.
You got it.
Yeah.
That's right.
I actually got a chance to go to a Dallas Mavericks basketball game several years ago. I went out with my business partner. We came out for a real estate event, and he was in his younger guy in his 20s, I believe. And I said, "You want to go to basketball?" He loved basketball, so we got some courtside seats for the Mavericks.
Wow, that's freaking amazing.
How I like to roll, but yeah. So let me ask you. Growing up in Dallas, there's a huge real estate community out there. I know this, all the land and everything. Was real estate something that you were exposed to as a teenager? Did you see it in your teens? Were your family doing it, or was it something introduced to you in your 20s? And if not, what were you doing in your teens? Was it real estate, or were you doing something else?
Yeah. So for me growing up, I wasn't really exposed to real estate or buying and selling houses, anything like that. But I was exposed to small business and entrepreneurship. So when I was young, my biological father, he actually had a small business setting up surveillance systems into residential and commercial areas.
Cool.
And I actually picked that up from him, and kind of felt that little flicker of light inside of me where it's like, man, this is pretty fun, owning and doing your own thing, setting your schedule, having that freedom. It was amazing. I didn't know what it was just yet.
Were you doing that in your 20s? Did you start to actually
part
of the company? And
I did. Yeah, absolutely. So I learned the skills and trades from him, and then I went out to create my own just before, my 20th birthday. So maybe from 18 to 20, I created my own small business doing surveillance systems and, set some up in a couple of restaurants, laundromats, houses, things like that,
Wow.
and had a little bit of success with it.
Good for you. I mean, like some of us didn't get started too much later, but I'm always amazed at talking to you young guys, and I say that because I'm 143 years old. Me and Rip Van Winkle. But yeah, to get a start in entrepreneurship in your 20s, and I mean in your teens. Now, in your 20s, I mean, did you get married in your 20s? Were you still doing security in your 20s? What happened to you in that decade there?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I turned 21, I think it was on my 21st birthday, I actually enlisted into the military service.
Okay.
Yeah. So I joined the army back in May, I think it was May of 2010, and rose the hand, said, "Hey, you know what? I want to go do this." And man, it was such a great experience. I learned so much from that. Served for about 12 years, and it wasn't until that back end, the last 3 years, where I found out about real estate.
Now, being in the military, and obviously you re-signed up a couple times there. Um, were you getting a technical training in the military at all, or any kind of training in anything that you could use later? And if so, I mean, how did you get introduced to real estate when you were in the service?
Yeah, yeah, really good. So, man, when I first joined, I was one of those guys that said, "You know what? I'm an adrenaline junkie. I want to go do the craziest thing out there." And so my recruiter said, "Hey, you know what? I've got a couple things for you, but based on your test scores, you should probably go do this, which is even better." I had really great test scores. But the adrenaline junkie in me said, "Hey, you know what? Sign me up for the front lines." So I joined as an infantryman. And man, that I think that in itself just set me up for a lot of success later on in life that I didn't realize just yet. A lot of leadership skills came out of that, a lot
Oh yeah.
of time management, organization structure, things like that. And being one of those guys on the line, you adopt a lot of other positions and skill craft. So I picked up quite a bit. It wasn't until that last 3 years where I was starting to plan out my transition from the military life to civilian life. And I was like, okay, well, if I want to set myself up for success, I need to create or go out and network with people.
Yeah.
And so, I thought of recruiting. So I went on a special duty assignment as a recruiter, and that was in Richmond, Virginia.
Cool.
And man, I got to tell you, that was the best move I made in the military by far.
Now, was that in the middle of your time, towards the end of your time? When did you?
Yeah, that was the last 3 years of my service.
And was it also during that time that you got introduced to real estate?
Yeah, absolutely.
How did that happen?
So the last 3 years of service for me as a recruiter, it kind of helped me transition from soldier to civilian, put me in front of a lot of folks, in front of a lot of college kids, go out, talk to them. I learned a lot of skills such as door knocking, just having great conversations, striking up conversations with people. We did little door hangers, things like that. We did cold calling, a lot of those skills that are, translatable to what we do now in real estate.
Yeah, very much so.
And yeah, and so, there was a book that kept calling out to me. And it's a book that, a lot of folks read or bring up, Rich Dad Poor Dad. For whatever reason, it said, "Hey, you know what? You need to read this book. You've passed this thing over too many times, and you just got to do it." So I think it was June, June of 2019 is whenever I picked the book up. I read it, and man, it changed my perspective, my mindset, everything. And it's just like, wow, this gave me so much, but what are the next steps? Right? Like it left that feeling of, I know there's more. I know this wasn't a how-to guide, but man, this thing just gave me the fire that I needed and the change of my outlook to go create my own future.
Now, let me ask
And
you, did you get married while you're in the service, or was that after or before?
Yeah, so I got married back in 2012 while I was in the service. It was actually after my first deployment, and I met my spouse back in 2010. So she had been a huge rock and support for me through a lot of times, and it was just amazing. We got married New Year's Eve, 2012.
Cool. What was your career? What was your chosen career path? What were you envisioning to do? I mean, I guess you're looking like I'm going to end my time now and I want to do this. I mean, how did that transpire?
Sure. So when I was in Germany, I was actually in a different industry. While I was in the military, I picked up stock trading. So I was doing a little day trading here and there. I was on the opposite side of the world, so I had to time the market opening. Of course, I think it was 3 p.m. over there. It was 9 o'clock over here, and or Eastern time. And so I picked up a little bit of that, and I think it was still a little bit of that entrepreneur in me that was like, hey, you know what? There's something else. There's something else out there,
Mhm.
right? And so I had some successes with that. Ups and downs. You can't time the market. Um, but that led me to again picking up that book. And I think the biggest change for me was um, as I was transitioning in mindset from soldier to civilian, I said, you know what? How do I set up my family for success? How do I do all these? So it was a part of that bigger vision of I don't just want to go into recruiting. I want to network. And I told my wife this actually. I said, hey, going into recruiting is going to give me the opportunity to meet a lot of people, to network. And, your network proximity is power. It's absolute
Yes.
powerful. And I just didn't realize yet what was going to happen when we got into the recruiting space. And so let's see, I left Germany back in May of 2019, or March of 2019. And it was maybe 2 months later that I picked up the book. I started, on Bigger Pockets. I think a lot of folks start there too. Learned a lot, jumped into the forums and started learning about wholesaling. And that was my first taste of real estate was learning wholesale.
Yeah.
And I studied for about a good 2 or 3 months of just watching videos, YouTube, reading books, looking over forums, and I consume nonstop for 3 months. When I felt like I had enough, or at least enough to go start, I got my first deal within that next month. It was July of 2019, and that was proof of concept for me. That just made the click, and it was like, wow, this is possible.
Good for you. Good for you. Man, it just seems like 2019 seems like just a minute ago in some regards, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy you mentioned that, JJ, because I was sitting with my wife maybe about a week ago on the couch, and we were just chatting, and I said that exact same thing. I said, my military life, 2019, seems like it was a lifetime ago. It's so funny how your life experiences, the things that happen for you, it seems to come and go in a blink of an eye.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, tell me, brother. Like I said, I'm 143 years old, so it's gone by pretty quickly, you know.
You got another 140 on you.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I'm hoping. So you and I met through Sub 2. We met through an unbelievable guy that's just a giver extraordinaire, Pace Morby. And we were fortunate enough to meet in Phoenix. And that was just a great experience for me because I met so many people that I've had heard of and not yet met, and some that had been on my Zoom call, but I had not yet met. And it was just a great opportunity. But again, we got to meet there. Um, how did you fall into Sub 2? How did you meet Pace? How did that transition happen for you?
Sure, absolutely. So, man, Pace was introduced to me back in 2020. So let's go back to 2019. I was doing a little bit of, a couple of wholesale deals here and there. And I had, I got into my first JV or collaboration unintentionally, um, with another wholesaler. right? And that wholesaler taught me so much. Now I'll say this up front, that they were supposed to be a buyer, and they taught me a strategy that I ended up utilizing over the next 6 months, which just it blew everything out of the water in terms of perspective, mindset, everything. And so I'm super appreciative of that first relationship and that first deal, because it taught me so much. But it also taught me that, if there's this strategy out there, there's others that I haven't learned yet
Yeah.
that I need to go figure out or learn from someone. And one of my buddies, my partners, my JV partners, he said, "Hey, have you heard of this guy named Pace? He's doing this creative finance stuff, and he's got some content out there. You should go check him out." And man, boy, was I a knucklehead. I didn't check him out when he told me to check him out. I wish I would have. I looked at some of the content that he was putting out, and I was like, man, this looks so good. But for one reason or the other, I kept putting it off. I was procrastinating. And I kick myself in the foot every single time I think about that. But let's fast forward to 2021. I had one of the members of his enrollment team that reached out to me because I filled out, some information to join the community. And, we had got on calls left and right. We were just playing a lot of phone tag. And after watching, more of his content, I was like, you know what? I feel really good about this. This guy knows exactly what he's talking about. He's genuine. He's authentic.
Yeah.
And he's such a giver. So I said, let's do it. So I signed up back in August of 2021, and I am so thankful. And it's just completely 10x'd everything.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I've had the pleasure to meet Pace on several occasions, and for those of you that haven't met him, I mean, I'm just really impressed with how nice he is.
Yes,
he's so nice. He's genuine, down to earth. Outside of the fact that what he's given to everybody and what he's provided with the community, and key to the Magic Kingdom, so to speak, if you use it right. He's a guy you don't want to hang out with, but he's so busy, can't hang out with him, But it's just great. Yeah, as we talk about Sub 2, we talk about Pace. There's an unbelievable community there, and that's how you and I got to meet. And one of the kids, when I started 5 years ago with real estate education, met a guy in LA, and somebody said, "Oh, you got to meet this guy. You got to meet this guy." And we met at my first meetup week, just a few weeks in, and everybody talked about him that day. So let's go to dinner. We went to dinner. And he tells me that, one of the biggest wins is not, you can get all the education from YouTube University or from Bigger Pockets or the library or Google, but the real goal in any community are the people.
Yes.
And if you're in a community and you're not building relationships, you're not creating relationships, you're not taking advantage of what you could build within the community. And I equate that today to networking. If you're not networking, if you're not marketing yourself, you're wasting your time. I think for myself, I've networked to meet a lot of people, which is great, but I'm not concerned about the deal. And I say, Jonathan, I tell my group all the time, don't chase the deal, chase a relationship.
100%.
100%. I think it's made my business grow slower, but I think I've walked in with a little bit more of a portfolio than most. So I'm fortunate in that regard. But I love people. I grew up as a kid that was shy and stuttered. I was bullied and teased and never included, and I felt the apprehension to be a part of anything. And so I kind of flipped that around to a 180. But, now with Sub 2 or with real estate in general, networking has become part of my thing. But, your topic today is the power of partnerships.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a little bit for those on the call and those watching on the YouTube channel?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I do want to just touch on really quick that you said was, you know, you mentioned that you feel that your business has grown a little bit slower potentially, right? Because of your focus on people and relationships and not the deal. And I think it's more of a perspective, right? It depends on what business you're in, right? What do you classify as your business? If your business is people and relationships, then I think you're doing amazing.
I want to say that thank you so much. I tell people all the time that I build my business by building relationships, and I build relationships by leading with value. Well, what does that mean? There's new students, there's experienced students. Well, for the new students, I build those relationships by offering them to teach them everything that I learned about how to be visible. Because by being visible, I know Jonathan Newsome, you know?
There we
And
go.
yeah. Mitch Roy, Dennis Rogov, Keto
Yeah.
Ketla, Vince Lanza, some of the accountability leaders around the country have become friends of mine. But I tell the new investors, you don't market your business, you market yourself.
Yes.
And so I've gotten to the point where I'll help the newer investors to get their visibility, to learn how to market themselves to where they can, hypothetically, arguably be visible as I become visible in sub two, or even across the country in other groups that I'm a part of. But as far as the experienced investors like yourself, I don't need to necessarily teach them how to be visible. They're already successful. But what I've tried to do, what I leave with value for the more experienced investors, is like we've done today. Let me share my platform. Let me market you. Let me make you more visible. And then what that does as a result is allows us to become closer as friends. But I say all
Yes.
the time, I build my business by building relationships. I build relationships by leading with value, to the point now where, I've have my networking group. And
Yes.
anyone that I choose to network with or chooses to network with me, I'm like, join my group. So as I meet all the rock stars in Sub 2, I'm like, join my group. So I've amassed, for those of you that are not yet in my group, I've amassed just a boatload of talent in one group of, that's 3,500, 3,700, but we're not 10, we're not 20, we're not 30,000. But, and I've built that group by building personal relationships. And I think
Yes.
what that's going to allow me to do now is springboard forward, because when I first got into my prior education group, they signed me up for all these supplemental programs. I was $60,000 in when I was 2 months in, 30,000 to sit down, and 3,000 for 3 incremental programs. And this gal calls me and she says, "Hey, you're killing it." I says, "What are you talking about?" "Well, your group, it's like 500 people." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't have a deal yet. I'm 6 months in. I've of course got that deal since then." But she says, you may not have a deal. She says, "You're doing it backwards from everybody else by laying out your foundation and your network, but you're doing it right because you're building all the relationships that will springboard you forward." So if you guys are listening on the call now, if you're on the call now, build those relationships, mark yourself, make yourself visible, because that's what's going to allow you to build relationships with people like Jonathan. So back to you, my friend. We're talking about the
Yeah.
importance, and you were giving me a little bit of kudos there that I wanted to just jump into for a second. But
Absolutely.
the power of partnerships. How do you view that? I mean, the importance of that for success for anybody or everybody, including yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So partnerships, as you've mentioned a couple of times, is it's it's a key to success. Partnerships, relationships, collaboration is the key to success. If you look at any of the highly successful, elite performers in the world, they didn't get there by themselves, right? They got there with teams, through collaboration, through joint ventures, through relationships. And as you've all probably heard, success leaves clues. Those are the clues, right? Um, for me, it took me a while to realize that myself, and when I first started real estate, I was a solopreneur, as many of us start, right? I wore all the hats, I sat in all the seats, I did all the things. And, we talk a lot about a work-life balance. I got to tell you, when I first started, that was so imbalanced, right? It was my priority at the time was work. Is how do I get this successful thing off the ground? How do I turn this successful? How do I fill all these seats and be there with the family? And it just it didn't occur to me yet that the power was around me. It was all around me. And so for that first, for the first year, it was just solo. And I was trying to figure it out. And it started happening a little bit over time when I started going to RIAs, or the real estate investment, meetups, the associations, the small meetup groups. I started to notice that the folks that were around me that were successful, they had partners, right? And maybe they weren't just partners on paper. Maybe they were joint venture partners or something like that. But they had partners, they had people, they had support. And it started to click little by little. Man, if you want to get there, you know, at least a little bit faster, or if you want to get there and maintain, then you need to partner up with people. You need to find like-minded people that share your vision, that are aligned with your core beliefs, your values, and just go out there and do it, right? And so I started doing some joint ventures over time. Actually, my first joint venture outside of that first wholesale deal was in the recruiting office. And what do I mean by that? Well, back in 2019, I had a fellow recruiter and a really good friend of mine who saw what I was doing, and he said, "Hey, you know what? I'm starting to see some traction with what you're doing, and I kind of want in a little bit. I want to know what's going on." And it just so happened, before the Gator lending, before these things that came out, I had an opportunity to present him with, and it was, "Hey, why don't we collaborate? You can be my my lender on this EMD for this wholesale deal I got, and I'll give you a return on your money." And we drew up some paperwork thanks to an attorney that was in town, and next thing he lent $1,500 for an EMD for a wholesale earnest money deposit, and 30 days later he got 3,000 back. So he made $1,500 on that, and that was proof of concept for him, right? That showed him, like, man, if I partner with people, maybe there's something there for me as well. And we went on to do a couple more deals together. Actually more deals before he ended up leaving out to Korea. And it was just so powerful to see that even the folks that are, around you, that aren't in the industry, that aren't in the space, you can create some really powerful stuff if you just open up and show them how this thing works. So that was back, in 2019. We fast forward to 2020. I start doing more JV deals. I start showing up to these meetups more often. And, I start doing consistent deal flow with, two young gentlemen that were there in the Richmond area with me. And we put our heads together after one night. We said, "Hey, we've been working together for about a year, and, we don't even know where we're from. Right? Like, let's have this conversation." At the time, it was, we were having fun. We're doing some business. We're, making a couple bucks together. And, we got serious, and we're like, "Hey, you know what? Let's set up a time to talk and figure out, who we really are." And it turns out that those two gentlemen were also from Dallas, from the same neighborhood that I grew up in. And it was like, holy smokes, man, you've got to start asking more questions. And this is directed at myself, of course. But it's like, if you really want to know people, if you truly want to get to know people and build really good relationships, you got to ask questions. You have to be intentional. You have to be genuine and authentic. And, once we found that out, we realized where our strengths were and where our weaknesses were. And it just so happened that we covered each other's weaknesses. And so what happened was, we said, "Hey, you know what? let's go all in. We've done JV deals together. We mesh really well. Let's start up a business partnership. So we did. We got an office in downtown Richmond. That's where I started real estate, in Richmond, Virginia. And we had a cold calling team that we started, about a 15-person cold call team that we created. And a lot of that really fell on them because one of the partners was amazing with systems and processes. I knew systems and processes, but it wasn't my strength, nor did I have a passion for it. So that collaboration, it just taught me so much going forward. We did some deals together. We did a lot of deals together. We started in Richmond, and we ventured outside of the state of Virginia. We started doing some virtual wholesaling, and one of the things that we all agreed on was that relationships and collaboration is the key. So we wanted to go out and get into other mentorships because we heard this saying from one of the gentlemen that I'm sure we've all heard of before, Grant Cardone. He says, "Hey, if you want to get a seat at the table, what do you got to do? You got to pay. If you can't pay, you got to find a way to get into the room." Right. And so because of our deal flow, because of some revenue that we had coming in, we were like, well, there's a couple masterminds that we want to join. There's a couple mentorships we want to join. And we know that stepping into these rooms will allow each of us to utilize our strengths in those rooms and build new relationships. And we were crystal clear that was the thing that we had to do, was build relationships. We were highly intentional with it. A lot of times we will go to meetups and, we take notes. There's a lot of solid information there. But as you mentioned, JJ, you are highly intentional with walking up to people, telling them who you are, getting their contact information, and setting some kind of appointment up with them. You have to do that. You absolutely have to do that. I'm so, I'm so happy to see that in your chat, you have folks that are dropping a template of who they are, right? Their markets, their names, their contact numbers. I encourage that in every single Zoom. And so it's so freaking refreshing to see. When we went to one of the mentorships in Arizona, there was a gentleman there that, it's funny thinking back at this because we were kind of in that space where we're growing, but we're not there yet, right? We were doing a couple deals a month, but we were looking at this table, and there was a couple of folks there that were, where we wanted to be. And I remember just standing around with my buddies, and we're like, "Hey, should we go take a seat there?" And we're like, "You know what? Let's do it. Let's just go sit down and have a conversation with these people." That was the best decision we ever made. Best decision we ever made. It turned out it was a couple gentlemen there that were, doing some really big things. One of those guys was from Houston, and
good market there.
Really good market.
Yeah.
Really good market. And so he's one of the big players out there in Houston. He's recently moved a part of his operation over to Miami, but turns out that he was also from the Navy. So he and I really hit it off because I was in service at the time. Yeah, commonality, exactly. So instant rapport, instant, everything. And boy, I got to tell you, I think at times we sort of undervalue and underestimate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it showed when we were chatting at the table, because there were things that we were doing and implementing as a company, as a business, that they were just mind blown by, and they were vice versa. Right. And it's like, wow, never discredit yourself or what you do.
Yeah.
Right. And so that one meeting, it got us to create this really good relationship with this gentleman down in Houston. He's invited us multiple times down to his office to show us the things that we were just lacking or missing, that we're going to take our business to the next level. And had it not been for, us just making the decision as a whole to take that chance, take that seat, we would have just missed that opportunity. that is a joint venture, right? And so what I didn't say before was that we had the opportunity to join one of two mentorships. We joined them both, right? One of my buddies and business partners at the time, he said, "Hey, I know, we're choosing one or the other, but why not both? Why not both?" And we were like, "You know what? You're absolutely right. Let's do it. Let's figure it out. Let's do both." One of those mentorships was a $40,000 mentorship. The other was a $35,000 mentorship. So in the month of May of 2020, we dropped about $75,000 to join both mentorships. And I would do it all over again, because you have to think for a second that if you are investing that kind of money into the room, into the relationships, into, the thing, other people are doing the same thing, right? They're absolutely doing the same thing. And there could be things in that room that you're really great at that you could help them with, and vice versa. And that's exactly what happened, right? So, we joined those other mentorships because we believe in the power of proximity, relationships, and collaboration. And one of the things that kind of it dawned on me was accountability. We say the word accountability, and this was like an epiphany that happened, right? When we think of accountability, and I'd love to hear some feedback, but what do we think of? What does accountability mean to you? JJ, what does accountability mean?
That's a great question. I think accountability just really means follow through, and I think we can all do better at that. We talk about having an accountability leader or an accountability partner. Who are we going to account to? Like, did we do what we wanted to do? Did we do what we said we're going to do? And I'm probably as big at fault of that as anybody else. I think sometimes I spread myself too thin. I wouldn't call it shiny object syndrome, but there are different groups that I didn't want to miss getting involved with Sub 2. I didn't want to miss getting involved with Carl Allen. I didn't want to miss getting involved with Amy Majori. So, these things take a lot of time. And do I have time for all of them? Probably not. But I think accountability means following through. I think part of that, some of the things you've mentioned, is not only time blocking, but setting up a list of priorities. Do you have a list of maybe 3 things you're going to do tomorrow? What are the 3 things I need to do tomorrow? So you can knock this, and then today, what are the 3 things I'm going to do on Sunday? And maybe that's being accountable to myself.
Yes.
But I think accountability to me means, are you following through on things that you're committing to? And the only person you're failing when you don't do it is you're failing yourself. So
100%.
To me, Jonathan, to answer your question, what does accountability mean? It means following through on the things that you're committing to.
That's amazing. And second part to that question is, what is an accountability partner?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I've had people that wanted to be my accountability partners, and when I jumped in early into Sub 2, and I was giving a battle buddy, and that kind of went by the wayside. I think an accountability partner is someone who's just as dedicated to you as you are dedicated to yourself, and you need to be as dedicated to them as you are dedicated to yourself. Because it's easy to go, I can't call that guy today, or I got other things going on, and these things are more important. But that accountability, being accountable to myself, means being accountable to that person. Ooh. And now that and I'm learning on every single one of these calls that we have, and what you're giving me now is huge. As far as taking my business to the next level, and being accountable is also believing in yourself and reaching to that next level. Nobody sets the bar higher maybe than yourself. You want to do more than you did yesterday. So yes. I think, what does the accountability partner mean to me? I mean, it's someone who I'm going to believe in, that I'm going to want to follow through with, that I'm going to want to follow up with, that a relationship, and as I said all the time, don't chase the deal, chase a relationship.
Yes.
So I guess it's that kind of person that, I say it all the time, I'll buy a house from anyone where the numbers make sense. I'll sell a house, anyone's money's going to clear escrow. But if you're going to be on my private money lender, I'm going to be yours. I'm going to be your accountability partner, or you're going to be mine. Is this someone who I'm going to invite into my home to sit down with my kids, with my parents, with my grandkids, with my grandparents? Because the person that I'm going to have as accountability partner is going to be more than a business partner. It's going to be someone that we're going to be accountable to one another. And it's not always easy to find. And Jonathan's bringing up something so very important, is that we find that whether you call him a battle buddy, whether you find him an accountability partner, but someone who you can really connect with. And I think that's great question. If I may, we have a couple other folks. Can I bring them in as well? We could ask the same question.
Please.
Cynthia Ware, you are on with Jonathan Newsome. Do you want to answer his question, or do you have a question of your own?
Oh, I would like to answer the question. Thanks for the platform, JJ. Thanks for being here, Jonathan.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Yes. You gonna hear me pretty good?
Yeah. So what's accountability partner mean to you, Cynthia?
Accountability partner. Well, accountability, first of all, to me means you show up. You do what you say you're going to do, even if it's just to yourself or to others, a group, another person. Accountability partner is a person that I would like to be able to have a very good communicable. I mean, we can talk really almost about most things or anything. We can respect each other. We don't have to be twins, but we got the substance in common. But then I can develop goals with them. I can hear their dreams and goals and be supportive of it. I could be encouraging for them. When they don't show up, when they make excuses, I can give it and they can give it to me. Acceptable, encouraging criticism. Now that's where for some relationships, that's where the line is drawn, right there. Some people can't take criticism. Some people don't give it to the other person. We should be able to cross that line and be supportive and encouraging with that criticism. And feedback. I like to receive feedback from my accountability partner. Am I helping you? Am I supportive for you to try to get to where trying to get to our goals, and even sometimes some self-development stuff there. That's it for me.
No, Cynthia, you're awesome. And, Jonathan, Cynthia's been with our group for, literally since the beginning of the Zoom calls have been going on almost 3 years now. Yeah, and she is here regularly contributing. I'm going to brag on yourself a little bit, Cynthia. Cynthia's a doctor and highly intelligent, educated. She brings value in every regard, and she's always contributing. She's always participating. And I thank you so much, Cynthia, for your question and for constantly showing up.
You're welcome.
That was so good. Thank you.
I thank you, JJ, for being here for us. You're here for us.
So thank you so much. Thank you. Jonathan, one of the things, she points out some great things, and your question is so spot on, and your presentation, your appearance here today is so spot on, because you're bringing such value that we're always caught in one thing or another. And I say it all the time, chase the relationship, don't chase the deal. But you're pointing out the importance of chasing the relationship, is having that accountability partner, being accountable. Cynthia mentions feedback, but another one I wanted to throw out before I get to the next person is follow-up. And even when we're talking to someone, we're helping someone out. I had somebody reach out to me and say, I'll get back to you. And I get busy and I didn't get back to them. And then, 2 months later on a post in Facebook, they're like, well, you didn't get back to me. But I'm like, okay, well, you could have followed up. Because as we're trying to chase down someone who's got a house for sale, we got to follow up. And
Yes.
I think follow up weaves right in there with the feedback, which is part of accountability. And guys, we need to raise the bar on our group, our mastermind networking group. We need to raise the bar on helping one another. And everything Jonathan's bringing to the table today is huge. But I freaking love you. January Batten, you are on with Jonathan Newsome. How are you today?
Hi, good afternoon, JJ. Thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor. I am in sub two,
Okay.
and I'm actually really new. So, but I tell you what, on the sub two Facebook page, I see JJ Azizian. His name, your name is always on all these. People are tagging you and posting about you, and Jonathan Newsome. People are, putting your name out there. So it's really an honor to be here talking with y'all about this accountability and building relationships thing, because that's kind of what my question is. Like I said, I'm new, about 3 months, a little over 3 months into sub two. And I have been just connecting with people in the sub two Facebook group like crazy. I've had so many incredible, amazing, I just heartwarming calls and Zoom videos, just one on one with all these new people that I never knew before. And so that's the beauty of the sub two group, is that I'm getting connected and building relationships with these people. But JJ, you just nailed it on the head. I've had so many great first calls, but now here comes the follow through and that follow up. So my question is, how well, it sounds very business-like for a relationship issue, but how do you keep track of all of it? Because I love connecting with these people. And like Jonathan, you mentioned you were in the military. My husband was in the Air Force for almost 27 years before he retired. And so we lived overseas, and we've had those experiences, and I'm connecting with these other sub two students in so many different ways. What do you use, or what helps you follow up and keep up these relationships?
Okay, you want Jonathan to go first or me to go first, or?
Well, okay, I'll ask Jonathan first.
That's such a really good question. And, I found myself in that same scenario a couple years back, and even still to this day, I'm guilty of it, right? Sometimes we don't put the systems in place that are there to help us. And make no doubt about it, relationships even require systems to help you keep up, right? We have so many things going on throughout the day that, it's so difficult at times, if we're being a mom, a dad, a brother, sister, husband, wife. There's just so many pieces, right? So many variables that we need help, and systems and processes give us that aid that we need. So maybe setting up, what worked for me is setting up a spreadsheet of all the people that I've connected with, right? It could be an Excel sheet. It could be, a CRM, something like that. And, maybe just going through every day and selecting 3 people from that sheet to just say, hey, hey, I just wanted to check in and see how everything's going. Essentially like a gratitude text, right? You can do it first thing when you wake up, send your gratitude text. And not just for yourself, but for those people too, right? It does wonders, right? If you got a text at 7:00 in the morning that said, hey, I'm just checking in here. I know it's been a while since we last spoke, but I hope all is well. Let's connect soon, right? How would that make you feel inside?
That feels so good.
So good.
When somebody sends me a message, hey, I was just thinking about you. Just wanted to let
Exactly.
you know, have a great day.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
Yes. Wonderful.
Yeah. So that's something that has worked for me, is just setting up some kind of follow-up system, right? Because once these gears get going, they get going. And I need I need that outside help for sure.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested to see what what works for JJ.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, or this question comes about, because I talk to a lot of people. I encounter a lot of people. And as I was mentioning earlier, networking is like driving for dollars, cold calling, or door knocking. You need to knock on a lot of doors. You need to make a lot of cold calls. You need to drive a lot of houses to discover the ones that can possibly lead to be a potential lead or become a lead that might be a deal. And I say networking is the same thing. You need to throw a net over a lot of folks. You need to reach out and connect. So for me, like, okay, I've got a couple tips. This is for all the new students that are in sub 2, because I get this. 2 weeks ago, I had over 100 anonymous friend requests. What does that mean? Meaning there's no message to introduce themselves. How do you know me? Why are you adding me? So if you're a new student, you can send a friend request, send a message, introduce yourself. Hi, my name's JJ. Hi, January. My name's JJ. I saw your post in sub 2. I'd like to get to know. I sent you a friend request. I hope you accept it. I'd really love to talk to you on the phone. Here's my number. Can you please return your number in this message thread? Well, that's huge, because all these new guys are just sending out friend requests with no, and I know from talking to all the other rock stars like Jonathan, they just delete them. You get to 50, 100, 150, 200 anonymous friend requests, they just go delete them. Now, what I've done to try and what I call networking, you network to see who in the community can help you, right? That's what we want, is help from the community. I call it squeezing the juice from the orange, right? So to squeeze the juice from the orange, you got to throw that net and bring them all in. So what have I done? And talking about systems, Jonathan, I've created a group. Anyone who wants to network with, join my group. Why should I do that? Because I'm going to introduce you to everybody else in my group. I run my group like a cocktail party at my house. They're going to be nice to you. And January, I'm going to teach you all the tips and tricks that I've learned to be visible, and you can utilize and practice them in my group. And you're going to meet people in my group. You're going to build relationships in my group. We become the sum of the 5 people that we surround ourselves with. Well, as we're growing and escalating, if through this group you're able to surround yourself with people of a like mindset, who you could pick up on the phone and call the phone to make you feel more confident about your focus and direction.
Yeah.
So what do I do? 2 things. One, I add everyone into my phone. I've got, I think, when I go to the sub 2 Facebook group, I've got over 1,600 sub 2 people on my friends list. But when I go to my phone, my contacts on my iPhone, I've got over 550 sub 2 people in my phone with name, address, phone number, city, state, and zip code. Why? And Jonathan talked about it before, being intentional. I network with intention. I don't count someone being on my friends list as being networking together. I want to get their name, their phone number, their city, state, and zip code. And I want to talk to them at least once right up in the beginning. Because if I talk to you up front, I'm always going to remember that phone call, ideally. Or you're going to remember my phone call. But just like we're going to a homeowner, we need to talk to them multiple times, multiple touches to get that deal. I want to talk to people again and again. And I make myself available. And the way I make myself available, so I got 2 Zoom calls a week. Jump on those calls. Actually, half an hour before that call, I'm teaching Facebook 101. In reality, I'm sitting at my computer an hour before the call for whoever wants to jump on early to get my time. And after the call, we have live breakout rooms. I'm going to introduce you to other people that can help you with your business. And if people come across my path, they want to be my friend on Facebook, they want to network with me, and they don't show up to the calls, they don't make themselves visible, where I've created the system, it's there. It's there. Come in and meet me. Come and mingle with me. Come into my home and meet my friend January Batten. Come meet my friend Jonathan Newsome. Because I'm bringing someone like Jonathan every friggin' week, every week. So I think the way I do it, though, January, is when I'm accepting a friend request, and many of you on the call will know this right now, I will not accept it if it's anonymous, and I will message that person going, thank you for your friend request. I have a networking group. Would you like to join my group? Can we exchange numbers? And then I'm going to enter their number into my phone. And as soon as it's in my phone, I'm going to text them my full entire contact. I just don't want that. I'm going to show you. I'm going to give you more back than you gave me. And then I'm going to say, can we jump on a Zoom call? And I'm going to send you the link to my new upcoming Zoom calls. I've sent Jonathan's link. I don't know how many people, and I don't know how many are on the call. but I've sent that link out. So I'm networking with intention. I'm reaching out. I'm saving their number. I'm trying to get on a phone call with people. I want to add them to the group, but I don't add them to the group unless they register. Because if I don't have their name, their email, their phone number, their city, state, zip code, I'm not networking with them.
Yeah.
So I've got a system. Eventually, you'll have a CRM. Jonathan probably has a CRM, and eventually put them in this. But before you have a CRM, heck, save their name and number. But when you save the name and number, save city, state, and zip code. And on your iPhone, you can put related people, and I'll put Sub2, I'll put Gator, I'll put Astro Flipping, I'll put Thrive, Clever Investor, TTP, whatever it happens to be. So I'll know what group they're with, in addition to what city they're from or what state they're from. But to me, that's networking with intention, and just putting someone on your friends list. And if you don't engage with them, don't exchange numbers, I guarantee you, they're never going to post, they're never going to comment, they're never going to send you a message, and a year and a half is going to go by, and you're going to go, "Who is this person?"
Right.
So I mean, that's kind of my answer. If that helps.
That's wonderful. Yes, thank you.
Lauren Parker, you are on with Jonathan Newsome.
Thank you for giving us this platform. Jonathan, thank you for being here. My name's J. Lauren Parker. I'm in Sub2. I'm a Gator. I've been in about the same time as January, just a little over 3 months. And I love everything you guys are saying and the tips on an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of people so I can follow up with them. I, unfortunately, am one of those people that doesn't like to ask for help. Anybody else identify? Well, yeah. And I'm at the point, I'm making the calls, I'm doing the work, but I'm finding I need that power partnership. I need to reach out and partner with someone to get that first deal done. I haven't done my first deal. I've come close. I've written contracts. I'm calling realtors. I'm doing direct to agent, direct to seller. Give me some goodies to push me over the edge of that cliff to fly. I mean, I know that I need to partner with someone. I've got folks that, from other Zooms, especially Arizona Sub2, saying, yeah, call me. I'm a unicorn agent. Yeah, call me. I close deals all the time. I'd love to help you. Why am I not calling?
I've got an answer for that one. Can I go first this time?
Go for it. Go for it.
Please.
You know what, Jay Lauren, I say it all the time. Network with intention. Right? Don't wait, right? The other part of that is don't be concerned with chasing the deal. The deal is always going to be, there's always going to be another bus, right? Yep. What you need to do now, especially in the beginning, is build your base, build your network, build your relationships. So when someone says call them. Don't be concerned that there might not be a deal on the plate, but get to know them. And what does it get to know them mean? It means get to know. Are they married? Do they have kids? Does their son play baseball? Is he of an age where I can give some tips on how to hit from the left side versus the right side? You want to build. You build your network by building relationships. You build relationships by developing rapport. You develop rapport by discovering commonality. Absolutely. So you want to ask about family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. You want to move into those as quickly as you can. Right. Okay. And use every phone call that you make as an experiment, as a trial run at getting better from phone call to phone call, at discovering commonality, at developing. Oh, I should have asked this with the last person. Well, the next person I'm going to ask this.
Yes.
So use these phone calls as an opportunity to practice building your relationships, because as you do this, you're going to find out of 4 phone calls, out of 8 phone calls, out of 10, 12 phone calls, you're going to find the people that you really resonate with. And oh my gosh, I love Jay Lauren. Oh, and they love you. And you're going to find people that you don't click with. And you're not going to like them. They're not going to like you.
Right.
But you can't stop reaching out. You can't, which is what I call networking with intention. It's almost a process of elimination. I got 5 phone calls. I'm going to make those 5 phone calls. And there's one thing that Jonathan said, having a list on my iPhone, I've created a little group of, hot phone calls. Like who do I need to call that I haven't called in a while?
Right.
In Southern California, I'm frequently on the road for a half hour, 45 minutes. I can pick up, I can make 2-3 phone calls in that time.
That's
So
true.
I'm going to say, network with intention, be proactive, make those phone calls, try and develop rapport. Jonathan?
That was great. I agree
Thank you.
100% with that. Yeah, 100%. I think what's worked for me in the past when, there was something that I needed to do, but I would put it off a little bit. I would kick it down the road, was prioritizing it. I made that the first thing that I had to do in the day. Right.
Okay.
And I got that tip from a book called Eat That Frog. Right.
Okay.
And essentially what Eat That Frog is the worst or the hardest, the most challenging obstacle in your day should be done first, right? Make that at the top of your to-do list. If you can conquer that, everything else in the day is so much easier. It's all downhill from there, right? So one of the things for me was doing cold plunges or cold showers, right? So I started with cold showers, and then I started doing the cold plunges with the ice baths. And it was just something that I didn't want to do for the longest. Right. And so I looked for supporting things to help me do it. One of those was, the breathing exercise, right? Guided breathing, that helped.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you know what? One of the days I just said, you know what? I have to do this because I know there's health benefits to this. I need to do this as soon as I wake up. As soon as I wake up, that's the first thing that I'm doing. I'm jumping in a cold plunge. And I would, just before it, I would do a 10-minute guided breathing. It prepared me for the cold plunge, jumped in the cold plunge, and it just everything else became so much easier. My mood, my stress levels, my everything, my outlook on life became so much different once I conquered that first thing that was my biggest obstacle. Right. So I would, that worked for me. I would highly suggest, number one is prioritizing it. Number two is the topic that we're having now is accountability, right? Finding an accountability partner to help you in conquering your challenges or your obstacles, right? You said, why am I not doing it?
I know.
Who is helping you through this?
I've had some accountability partners, and they've kind of fallen by the wayside. They get busy, I get busy, and that relationship just kind of goes away. So yes, it's time to get a new accountability partner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the greatest thing about what you just said is that those accountability partners were good for a season.
Right.
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 Now it's a new season. Now it's time to find a new accountability partner.
That's great advice, you guys. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Jay Lauren, I wanted to tag back in there. One of your
Sure.
the last part of your question was, why am I not doing this? That was the last part of your question. Why am I not doing this?
Fear?
Well, you know what? And it might be fear, apprehension. A lot of new investors would tell me, I'm new. I don't have any value. I don't know what to say when I walk into a RIA. Now, let me ask you, do you have any kids, any grandkids, any siblings?
I have kids and grandkids.
Okay, so was there a time in your life when, as a mother, you walked one of your kids into the ice cream shop? Was there a time in your life when, as a grandmother, you walked one of your kids into the ice cream shop?
Yes.
You've gone into school to represent your family and talk to the teacher. You've gone in with the confidence of the mother of that household. You've walked that grandchild into the ice cream store with the confidence that they are safe walking, holding your hand across the parking lot, walking into the store. So you walked into that school to talk to that teacher with the confidence of the matriarch being the matriarch of your family. You've walked that child across the parking lot into the ice cream store with the confidence that you are safe because you're with grandma and I'm going to help you pick whatever ice cream you want. And I'm going to make that happen. Well, when you walk into a RIA, you don't walk in there as the inexperienced real estate investor who doesn't know anything, because they're not there to talk to you about real estate. You're not there to talk to them about real estate. You're there to make relationships. You're there to develop discover commonality and develop rapport. You're there to talk about family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And when you're talking about that, you need to go in to talk about these topics of commonality, being the confident leader, matriarch of your family that you are. And you go in there with that confidence, and you have that same confidence when you pick up the phone, and you don't go into these meetings or pick up the phone of I'm a new real estate investor, I don't know anything, I don't bring any value. You go with the confidence of the matriarch of your family, and when you go in there knowing who you are, that your family and friends believe you to be, you cannot lose.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So that's why are you not doing it? Because it's mindset. You've
It
got to
is.
get into the right mindset and realize your value as who you are as J. Lauren Parker. And when you walk into a phone call or a room of investors, knowing who the value of those that truly know you to be, your friends, your family, and you walk in there with the mindset, believing in you as those who know you to be, you cannot lose. You cannot lose.
I will not lose.
There you go, girl. There you go. Well, thank you so much. Mr. Rogelio Ordóñez. ¿Cómo está? You are on with Jonathan Newsome.
Thank you guys for putting this together. And first of all, I want to thank Jonathan for his service in the military,
Thank
for
you.
serving our country, and anybody else that's in the military or has spouses or family. Thank you so much for that. And accountability to me is being who you are, no matter where you are, whether you're alone at home or in a crowd or at a concert or at church or whatever, you're the same person throughout. And having an accountability partner to me is somebody that you can be totally 100% honest, to build the trust, and to have 100% transparency, and have 100% communication. Because if you don't have those three things, relationships, whether business or personal, will fail. Automatic, because the trust is not there, the honesty is not there, the communication is not there, the transparency is not there. But when you can put all that on the table, and it is what it is, and if you like me, you do, and if you don't, you don't. And that's how I feel about accountability.
Such a good answer. Really great answer.
And
I got one more thing.
Go ahead.
I started with Pace on June the 30th with the Elephant Challenge, and we finished on the 3rd of July. So my my ability to make a call was terrifying. I was so scared. I had fear, which then imposed procrastination, and then I got petrified. So then, as I was walking, doing my exercise and all that, I kept thinking, how can I bust out of that mindset? So then I said, you know what? When I make the call, it's just a conversation, like with a friend. I'm just, I'm searching to see if there's motivation. I started with wholesaling. So my thought process was, I'm calling to make a call to find out if they're motivated to sell. Period. And if it goes further than that, then, look at your notes. But to break out, I read that book, Eat the Frog.
Yeah.
And you're right, putting the hardest challenge of your day first and knocking it out makes everything else like jumping rope. So that I learned that from that book. So when I started making these calls for wholesalers, that fear came, that procrastination came, and I was petrified. I had to just literally get my phone and just hold it. And I said, okay, now I got to make the call. So then I would call my brother. Hey, what's going on, bro? And all this. And then I'll hang up, and then, okay, I'm going to call and find out if this person's motivated to sell their property or not.
There you go.
So that's just how, I started, and I'm going, and now I'm watching the the sub two videos that Pace and Jerry Norton put together, that series. It's like 11 videos. So I'm watching those to get an understanding about sub two. But I really like sub two and seller finance. You know, it's just amazing, you know, because I was looking at wholesaling, and then when I would get people that, you know, didn't fit the wholesale thing, I said, well, there's got to be something else you can do to make this work.
Yeah,
So like,
you're so on base with everything you're talking about. Just picking up the phone and going and doing that, being consistent, being who you are. It's so important that we have the consistency of not diverting from who we really are. And so you just make some great points. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
Seven Smith, you are on with Jonathan Newsome.
Well, part of it deals basically starting with that accountability question he had, but I had some other thoughts about it as we're dealing with this based on some experiences I've had over the past several years. I believe accountability, another word or synonym for that is integrity. You have to have integrity in what we do. Okay. Now, everything does not always go well. You know, you can try things, you were hoping it would go well, but just being able to be forward and talk to your team member or to the individual you're trying to help and letting them know up front, this isn't going the way we want it. And I think that's part of the accountability. So our accountability, besides saying, I'm going to make 5 calls today, well, yes, that's great. But being able to move, say, okay, this one didn't work, and assessing. So I'm big into assessment of what happens. And so the question I have with this accountability, have you looked at some of the assessment tools like oh shoot, why did his name just leave? Tony Robbins, the DISC assessment, for example, the DISC assessment. And I will say for me, I think that was an absolute game changer because, you know, you have to sort of know how you work with people, first getting to know them. I always try, and I've asked this from folks, that we can get on and start talking. And the first thing we almost want to go to, hey, what do you do? And I pull them back and said, but JJ said, we got to do Ford. Okay, so we need to know something about each other. We need to have that conversation before we go into talking business. But a part of that, as you do that, there is that level of knowing where you fit and what can you contribute. And I think things like the Tony Robbins assessment, what Pace does with finding your avatar, I think those are very helpful. And then actually having a conversation so that your accountability can go to the next level because you know where you're good and how you can help people.
A lot of people, when they come forward, I get asked this all the time. They're, how can I help you? How can we work together? And you know, I say it all the time. For me, I don't even know you.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, I've actually gone to some people's Facebook pages and I've seen negativity posted there. You know, and so I kind of said earlier that if I'm going to work with someone, I want to know that they're the kind of person that I'm going to invite into my home and sit down with my family and my closest friends.
Exactly.
So it's so important, I think, to basically interview people, really. You know, because I say it all the time. I only accept my family, my real life friends on my friends list. Nobody else, with the exception of real estate investors. And if I'm going to accept a real estate investor, I'm going to want your name, your email, your phone number, your city, state, and zip code. And I'm going to want to jump on the phone. And I'm going to want to get to know you to some extent. Now, do we have time for lengthy conversations? No, we don't. I know Jonathan doesn't. I don't. I really don't. You know, I get told all the time I spend more time doing that than I should. But if we want to build our business, we need to build our network. And
Absolutely.
we need to build our relationships. We need to find who has the same mindset, who has the same focus. So we have to spend some amount of time, and that means getting to know people. And as you know, J. Lauren Park was talking earlier, we we're talking about we build our network by building relationships. We build relationships by establishing, building rapport. And we build rapport by discovering commonality, which means we have to some extent, get to know other people and allow them to get to know us.
Correct, absolutely. And I'm thinking what my thought was, because I think we've hit that a lot on the first part. For those who've been at this for a while, I was looking at something beyond that. You've done that. We are best friends. We are bosom buddies. But I'm a bosom buddies with lots of people, but I can't work with them. My thing is, yes, we do this. We become friends. I've got a lot of wonderful friends that I see on the screen right now, starting with the one and only JJ. He's like the son from another mother. But what do we do? How do we move forward with the accountability and integrity once we are in that space of actually feeling comfortable and knowing each other? Because sometimes that gets a little testy.
And I think that's a really, really good question here, because as Evelyn mentioned, you're already past the first stage, right? You've already put the filters in place that have got you to the point where it's like, okay, we know who we are, we're bosom buddies, as Evelyn mentioned. And, now it's, how do I decide whether we can go into business together, whether we can pursue these ventures together? I think that's a very interesting question, because I think what I've utilized is, I'm not sure how many folks here have read the book Traction, but Traction is a really good book, especially for entrepreneurs looking to start businesses, scale, put systems in place. And one of the things that they utilize in there is the people analyzer tool, right? And if you have to think of this as, relationships are a business. It's the business of getting into relationships, 100%, right? And just like you can have a really good relationship with someone and that takes you further along in your journey, if you have a bad relationship or a misaligned relationship with someone, it could set you back a lot, plenty, right? So when we set up businesses, or we're looking to scale our businesses and hire employees and things like that, we have these tools in place, like the people analyzer, right? Are they aligned in our vision, in our core values, and our beliefs, and all those things? Do they, next step is, do they get it, want, and have the capacity to do it, right? I would take that blueprint and simply translate it over to your personal or relationship life, right? List out your values, list out your beliefs, right? And this is something that I've done, is I've put friend's name, and then I've listed out all of my core values. And then I'll sit there and check off, okay, do we have alignment here, 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 here? Yes. Okay, great. We've got check marks all across the board. Or maybe there's one missing, right? At that point, it becomes a judgment call. But if there's more yays than nays, let's move on to the next step in the process. And that's get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it, right? Now, here we're not talking about, do they get this role as in acquisitions? It's, do they get the role of our relationship, right? Do they want this relationship? Well, it's very apparent that they do, right? We've been in this relationship for maybe a year now. We've done these things together. But we want to look at this as, let's say that, JJ and I here have been friends for a year, and now we want to go into business together as, business partners that own a commercial building. Now I have to screen based on these things, right? It's not enough just to be friends. It's not enough just to have relationships. There has to be alignment in those things. And both sides, both people have to get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it. And if they don't, they're the right person, just not for that seat.
Evelyn, I might add to that just a little bit. And, again, Jonathan spot on. He's not successful by accident.
That's right.
He's definitely got there with purpose and intention and put together a plan that works for him. I'm thinking that, as I'm getting to know people, I've gotten to know a lot of people now over the last, 3 to 5 years. And, I've had to work through some personal challenges to free my time up to get into real estate investment. One of those was the passing of my mother when I was in Fortune Builders and the time to deal with that. Another one was separating the family estate and going through appraisals and attorneys and, segregating the properties and all these things that precluded my ability to focus full time on real estate. I'm wrapping up, whatever it happens to be. Are we ever ready? No, we're never ready. We can't wait till it's the perfect time. We just need to get into it. But I think now, as I'm looking to really dive in with both feet, so to speak, which is my challenge. I think, if we're going to ascertain or determine who we're going to move forward with, that's an incremental process, and that is starting out. Let's talk another day. Let's talk another week. Let's follow up, and to see if the follow up is there, because that's what's going to take you forward. You could say that you want to work with people, but if you don't get back to them or they don't get back to you, sometimes someone has to get back to me so I can, I'm sorry for not getting back to you. But it's got to be that ping pong has to take place so that the game can move forward. And you can't move forward with 10 different people. You just kind of got to get a good feel and sort of pick those folks out. And, like anything else, we want to be the poorest person in the room. So as we look to see who we want to do business with, let's look a little higher. Obviously never get caught on, well, I need to make this much money, but it doesn't matter how much I make on whatever deal I do. For example, if I'm fortunate enough to do a deal with Jonathan, am I going to bicker over a number percentage? Heck no. I'll just be glad to be participating where I could learn something, gain from the experience, show him that I'm going to be there and show up. And then hopefully that will allow another opportunity in the future. But it's picking your people and following up and showing them that you're going to be there, which gets back to the accountability.
And one thing I love that answer, JJ. One thing that he also mentioned in there is that I didn't I might have missed was what I talked about early in 2020. Right, I didn't jump straight into a partnership with these guys that I was doing joint ventures with right off the bat because we were friends. Right, we have to put filters in place to protect ourselves and other people. Right, give them small tests, give them small things, do some small bite-sized deals together. Right, once you have a track record, as JJ mentioned, now we can kind of start to look at the bigger picture, at the bigger things.
Mr. Kevin Gabriel, you are on with Jonathan Newsome. What's your question?
You could talk to people that have the same mindset as you. How do you talk to somebody who thinks completely differently than you?
Kevin, I think you're so on board with that, is that and Jonathan alluded to that earlier, is we just need to be ourselves. We need to be natural. We need to be consistent, because it was totally trying to be something that we're not going to be as effective. We have to just be true to who we are. And even when we're dealing with sellers, whether they're a green seller, a purple seller, a red seller, I don't know all the terminologies, but if we're going to be talking to someone that we want really, that their mindset's completely different than ours, all we really can do is be true to ourselves and be consistent and do the best we can do. And as long as we're true to ourselves, I think that's the best we can do. Mr. Edgar Alexandre, you are on with Jonathan Newsome. What is your question? And are you with Sub 2? Are you with Sub 2?
Yes, I am with Sub 2, JJ. I'm with Sub 2. I'm being part of your community for, I would say, 6 or 7 months now. And I want to I have to thank you. And I mention that every time that I have the opportunity to talk to you. You helped me to become intentional, to network with intention. So I need to thank you for that every time. back to this accountability subject, I think, first of all, we have to be accountable to ourselves. Right? We've got to be true to ourselves. Because I think relationships is like a garden, it's like a bed of flowers, right? There are flowers, there are fruit, and you help them grow. You help your friends to grow. And at the same time, they help you grow. And there's mutual, help right there. So and everybody brings joy and happiness mutually. But there's one thing you have to be careful is that there are weeds out there. And you, as the owner, as the gardener of your garden there, you are responsible for removing the weeds. Otherwise, they're going to impact the flowers and the fruits. And if you don't do that, you're gonna put your garden in jeopardy. And honestly, I did that many times in my life. Many times I hurt my fruits and my flowers because I did not remove the weed as fast as I should have done. So I think that's one lesson that I learned in my life. I still have, I think many years ahead of me. So I'm glad I learned that, in time. And hopefully, my garden, my bed of flowers will become more and more beautiful, by the day. And my relationships will become more fruitful and beneficial to both sides. And I thank you guys for everything that you guys do.
Well, we really appreciate you. I'm going to ask you though, man, do you have a question you can turn that into for Jonathan? Maybe as far as how do you clean the weeds out, or how do you look for the weeds, or one of the things I'll say is, as groups grow, it's easy to maintain the standard when there's less people, but as it goes, groups grow into the tens of thousands, you're going to get occasional fox in a hen house. But again, do you want to maybe phrase that and have a question for Jonathan?
Yeah, I think that's thanks, JJ, for guiding me there. How do you keep your garden clean, Jonathan?
Wow, man, that's a really good question. How do you keep your garden clean? I think what's worked for me, at least in keeping my garden clean, is setting very high standards for myself and demanding that same standard from others around me. So and just like you're saying, Edgar, you want to make sure that you're removing the weeds. I think if your standards are high enough, they'll remove themselves.
Hey, Jonathan, going to wrap things up here a little bit, although we're going to stick around after the recording for some of the breakout stuff. But I wanted to ask you, you're a rock star, brother. You are just a leader in our community, the Sub-2 community. You're highly respected. Your name is mentioned alongside of all the others that are just people that we're all honored to have in our community and honored to know. If people want to get in touch with you, let me ask you, are you coaching? Are you mentoring? Do you have an intern program? Or are you not doing those things yet? And if you're not, and people want to reach out to you, what would be the best way? Would it be MySpace, TikTok? What's the best way for folks to reach you? And are you doing any kind of mentoring or coaching?
Yeah, that's a really good one. MySpace, MocoSpace, Mi Gente. I'm on all those platforms. No, so I'm actually on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm not currently doing any coaching or consulting just yet. I've kind of paused that, working on a few projects here, long term. And, if people want to, connect, I do have a website, jonathannewsome.com. There's a few things on there that they can go check out. And also really quick, just before we move on, I wanted to just give my own thought process on accountability and accountability partners. And the reason why is because I feel like everyone answered it perfectly. I think the way that everyone defined it is spot on. But I will add that I think there's levels to it. There's levels to accountability partners, just like there's levels to everything else in life. And what do I mean by that? I think accountability and accountability partners at its core is exactly what everyone said, right? It's making sure that people around you can help you achieve what it is that you're trying to achieve and vice versa. I think the next level from there, and this is it's more of a perspective shift than anything. It's a mindset shift, is an accountability partner. We've all heard the quote, "Show me your friends and I'll show you your future."
Mm-hmm.
Right? We've all heard the quote. You said it a little bit earlier, JJ. You are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Right? And so in what you do every single day, which is intentional networking, you also have to be very intentional with who your accountability partners are. Right? And I think that you should have an accountability partner for all areas of your life. Right? How do those quotes tie into an accountability partner? Well, if I know that I'm going to be this, the sum of the 5 people around me, who do I want around me? I want accountability partners. For instance, if I want to improve my overall health, I need to have an accountability partner that is 5 levels above where I'm at health-wise, right? Because that accountability partner has already gone through all the things, right? So not only are they going to keep me accountable, but also I'm going to become the sum of who they are. So it's a perspective shift. It's not just the things that we're doing, the repetition, the consistency. It's the people that we want to, aspire to be like, become. It's where do we see ourselves? What does JJ 2030 look like? Right? Who's going to help you get there? The person that's going to help you get there is the accountability partner 2030. Right? So we have to be intentional, like you said, with networking, and intentional with our accountability partners. That's what I think that accountability partner is.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When we talk about accountability partners or people we bring into our lives, in your ascension to greatness, because you're a role model, you're an example of what we all want to aspire as far as Sub 2, the community of 10,000, a lot of new people looking to get their first deal and get there. And obviously you're one of those people that we aspire to achieve, to get to be your level of success. Are there been anybody besides Pace? Is there been, and besides your wife, has there been anybody that's really impacted your business, maybe that's mentored you or stood out or helped you along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of folks in various areas of my life that have helped me and given me new perspective and things to strive for. And I've got to give credit where credit's due. You're one of those folks, JJ, that has created an amazing platform, an amazing way of connecting with people and building relationships. And, I look at you as one of those accountability partners. I think accountability partners don't have to be there physically, right? They can be there virtually. They can be, miles and miles away. And I look at that because where my content creation is, where my relationships are currently, to where I see what you're doing, there's a gap, right? And I would say that you're at least 3 to 5 levels farther than I am, right? So I need to close the gap in my relationship building, in my content creation, in my, in those areas of my life. So you, along with, the Paces, the DQs, the other folks, I met some amazing people in Miami just a couple of weeks ago, and that was through collaboration. It never would have happened without collaboration.
Yeah.
It all comes back to collaborating and relationship building. But they are now accountability partners for me in my life in the sense of marriage, right? They have an amazing marriage, right? I've seen the behind the scenes. I've seen, all the things, their relationship with their children, right? There's gaps. We all have gaps in our life. And I think we need to find accountability partners that are levels above us to help close those gaps.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And again, I go back to meeting you in January and having the honor of having you on my panel for the hot seat. And I'm got this group and I've got this platform which allows me to have you and I follow up and not talk about business, it's business related, but we're also talking about ourselves. And another time I'll share more about my background as you shared more about your background. But again, and I'm honored to say that I can in some way inspire or lead by example. But I look forward to you and I continuing our dialogue, continue to build a friendship where I can maybe help you with some of the things that I can bring, and you can help with some of the things that we could bring and collaborate. But for those that are watching on the call right now, it's always about reaching out to people that bring value. And sometimes you don't even understand the value that you have. But if you lead with your heart and you lead with your friendship and you're consistent and true and genuine in who you present yourself to be, that you'll be fortunate enough to make the friendships of people like our guest speaker today, Jonathan Newsome. If there's one thing that I've tried to be, and you can got over 100 videos, over 180 videos on my YouTube right now, but I just try and be consistent, and I just try and be real and just to build the friendships. And I'm honored to have you on. I am so honored to have you on the call today.
I appreciate it, brother. Bro, this is amazing. And your consistency in what you do shows just how intentional you are. And that is something for everyone to follow.
Well, I'll tell you, man, the value you brought today has been huge. We've got one of the longer calls we've ever had today, but it's because the gold nuggets just keep falling, just keep dropping. And so with that, we could go another 2 hours. I know we could. If you guys are watching on YouTube right now, please like Jonathan's video. Please put something in the comments, say something there, whatever your feedback is. Talk about our many speakers today. We've had, J. Lauren Parker. We've had Kevin Gabriel. We've had Rogelio, Selwyn Smith. If any of these people that have spoke on the call have stood out, mention their names. If you guys are on the call right now, do not go away. I got some great things in store for after we end the recording. Jonathan also, please stick around. If you guys want to get a hold of Jonathan again, he's got his website, jonathannewsome.com. If you can't find that, get a hold of me. I will connect you with Jonathan. If you want to get a hold of me, jjzizian.com, join my group, register. And like always, guys, you'll build your business by building your network. And that means focusing on relationships, networking with intention, and doing something you might not want to do. Get on the phone, talk to people. Brent Daniels, talk to people. That's Brent Daniels' group.
DTP.
But Pace says it, Jamil says it. It's about the people, it's about the relationships, and be genuine. I thank you guys for joining us today. On behalf of Jonathan and myself, Jonathan, we'll see them on the next call, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Count me in, brother. Thank you.
See you guys soon. Please join us again. Thank you so much.